I definitely say things in the wrong way a lot of the time. Um, so like for example, I have no idea what I said maybe 30 minutes ago, and I can't go back and edit that. And
Yeah.
All right. Well, hello and welcome to Writing our Own Story, Small Business Life at StoryForge, Episode 3, How to Make Friends and Cover Up Potholes. You might be asking yourself, who's StoryForge? And that's fair. We are a small business startup who's trying to revolutionize the publishing industry through a gamified writing platform. If you aren't familiar with us, please check us out at storyforge.com. My name is Tim, and I will be your host today. I am the Senior Director of Operations and Project Management here at StoryForge. Joining me are Beatrice, who is the Senior Director of Marketing and Social Media, CJ, who is one of our software developers, and our CEO and co-founder, Sabrina. So let's just go ahead and dive into it. So despite what a lot of companies are trying to do, remote work still very much a thing. Uh, you know, so despite everything that happens in the world, we're still all remote. We're technically based in Minnesota, and we have a handful of staff there, but we're basically a completely remote company. Most of us have never met our coworkers in person. We can't gather around the coffee pot to swap weekend stories. So that kind of just leads into how important is it to actually find a way to build and maintain some kind of company culture when you can't just have those kind of general conversations. You don't have that organic start to a conversation. I can't walk by and like lean over my cubicle and like, hey CJ, how was your weekend? Like we have to like make that effort to do those things. So I mean, let's just talk about some of the challenges of creating that. I guess Sabrina, you're gonna have a little bit different of a perspective because a lot of our developers are based in Minnesota, so you have met some of them. But just talk about how we've gone about it.
Well, developers are a little bit of a different situation because in general, they're not that fond of meeting other people and they don't really want to come to events.
How dare you?
So that's a
Yeah.
generalization, but it's nevertheless been my
Well, we have a
experience.
developer here, so
Yeah.
we can ask if that's
Yeah,
true.
CJ can talk to that. Um, but the we've done a few events for the devs specifically in Minnesota, and one of them we timed when someone was coming in for like in town for a reunion so that we could have as many people as possible. And it was a great experience. Like a ton of bonding happened, and then everyone kind of went back to their separate corners. And on the dev side of things, not a ton has happened in the like terms of culture since, which really made me realize how important it is to make it a consistent thing. With marketing, I feel like one of the reasons that we're so strong in the culture sense is that we do take time to be goofy in the middle of meetings. We discovered it on this one, actually, even after recording. We were kind of chit-chatting and talking and goofing around. And I know it's not as productive, but I do think it's very important. Because I mean, at its heart, StoryForge is a very whimsical platform, like a very fun and gamified site. And if we're not that way in our meetings, then how on earth can we translate that into an experience for the users? So
This
yeah.
is why, as the head of operations who schedules most of the meetings, I have to schedule everything. I'm like, all right, well, this meeting should take like 30 minutes, so I'm gonna book it for at least an hour. Where can I
Thank
find
you
an
for
hour
doing
in
that.
everyone's calendars?
Yeah. No, that's super wise. That's very wise. That's why you're good at what you do.
I
No, that's
try.
not why, but it is like a symptom.
That's the only reason why you're good.
You are good at what you do, and that is
And
motivating.
All
There we
right,
go.
I like that better.
But yeah, I feel like CJ probably has something to add as a dev, given what I've been saying about devs. Sorry to put you on the spot.
oh, you're good. Yeah, I think uh, if you're talking about like the last developer outing, I wanted to go so badly to that one, and I felt so bad that I missed it because I am I would consider myself both on both sides. Like I definitely fit in the generalization of I like being in my own corner and doing my own thing, but I also really like hanging out with people. So I'm both because I have a lot of anxiety, but I really like being with people. And I don't know, it's very interesting. I wish I went to that one, but I had school. So I think like everybody has so many things going on and like their own little schedules and everything. I don't know. I think consistency is pretty important. So like if we all come together, like you guys have uh, a lot more than just this kind of like a couple of meetings a week. You have like a bunch of them and one-on-ones and everything. And I think like uh, we don't. I don't know. I don't want to say we don't have that as much because we do, but I think it's different. I'm trying to like find my words here, but it's like you guys have so many more meetings and you guys all like come together and talk a lot more, and I like being in these a lot, and I wish that we did that more on the developer side, but I think like everybody also is like the me and like the generalization of like being in their own corner and like kind of doing their own thing. So I
Well,
don't know,
I
it's interesting.
I think it also makes a difference that just a lot of the projects we work on in marketing are collaborative, you know.
I was gonna say that,
Um,
yeah.
Mm.
well, here, I won't steal your thunder then. Go for it.
No, 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 don't steal my thunder. It's fine. I want to apologize for the blinds. Tim said I was obsessed with those blinds, but
Okay,
like,
right
look
now
how
it is
annoying
real
that is.
bad.
Like, it's actually bad. It has consistent. I have to be like very close to the camera, so I'm so sorry. But I do feel like being part of a marketing team does help because of what Tim was saying. That is a lot of collaborative efforts that most of our initiatives can't become possible if we don't collaborate with each other, especially because we do a lot of small things that constitute the bigger things, especially whenever we're planning for events or stuff. But even just our day-to-day basis, like I handle social media, but Tim is the one that does the analysis. If we're not communicating constantly, like I don't know how to improve our social media strategy because I don't know what the analysis is if I am not communicating with him, if he's not communicating with me. Backwards the other way around. Tim doesn't know the intentions of what we want to communicate through our social media if I'm not communicating that to him. I've always been a very like everyone on the same page person, and I am not a developer, so I don't know how different it is on a coding perspective because I know it's a lot of like you're working on a very specific ticket that yeah at the end is going to contribute to the big platform, but it's not as like all hands kind of situation. So I do understand how it could be hard for like other tasks for other people to go around with. But I also think that it's because the developer team is way bigger. We were able to become very close as the marketing team because it's a smaller team, and we're kind of close knit, tight knit. And whenever you're in calls with a lot of people, there are less chances for people to contribute or like talk about their stuff and all of that. One thing is a meeting where we're both goofing around the four of us, but another thing is like a meeting where like 20 people are goofing around. With 20, the dev team is like not 20 people, but sometimes I join, sometimes Sabrina and Derek join. So like it does pile up and it does become a little bit tricky. I do feel that probably just like doing because we do little game nights and those events and the little team building exercises and activities and stuff has helped especially bridge the gap between both of the teams. Like I have been able to get to know a little bit of the devs. I remember that Tim mentioned that like one time you stayed with like I think it was I just talking about a specific movie that you realized that you really like and you wouldn't have known that if there wasn't like that conversation. We do have channels where like we put little memes and stuff, but I think having that actual connection, face-to-face connection, even if it's through a camera, has always been very important to develop the team as close as it has developed. Because even if we cannot be physically face to face, we are interacting in a way that we would interact in person. And I think that's very important. And I like the idea that we have so many meetings and so many things that we can just verbally interact more than just through messages, because also like intentionality and fun and all things are very diluted in messages as well.
Yeah. And I think one other thing that kind of plays into it, and this is a very specific startup small business problem, that the majority of people that work here, this is not their only job. Like
That's
I
also
think the
true.
four of us are unique in that this is this is it for us. This is what we do. Whereas, we have very high level people who have other jobs, other businesses. They have other things to do with their lives, whereas the rest of us, this is kind of it. This is our 9 to 5. This is, sometimes our 5 to 9s. What it is, what it
Bold
is.
of you to think it ends at 5. 9 to 5, yeah, sure.
We've talked about
5
the
a.m. to
Sabrina
9
work-life
p.m.
balance, work-life balance.
We have talked about it. We have.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, but what's one of so I mean, most of us have worked for in-person business before. Um, I hate that term, but what's the easiest part of a company culture to get lost once you go remote?
I The in-person businesses that I worked with before starting StoryForge were miserable in terms of culture. I was in the cybersecurity field, which is not a very friendly place
Hmm.
to be female. And the culture that both of them had set up, because it was two different companies that I had interned at before starting StoryForge, and one of them was really small, it was a startup, and another one was like 70 people. And their whole culture had been built around this like idea of who would be working there, and it didn't match me at all. Um, so I mean, obviously, I'm the one who's building the culture here, so it works a lot better for me because I'm doing basically what they were doing, but with me at the center. But when in the really small one of the ways to bond with my coworkers was by doing Magic the Gathering during the lunch break. But I don't like playing Magic the Gathering. I have tried so many times to enjoy it, and I just can't get into it. But there was never any effort to meet me halfway and be like, oh, let's play a different thing.
Mm.
So during lunch breaks, instead of getting to know my team members, I would just like skip out and walk like to get food somewhere else where I didn't have to be reminded that I wasn't like measuring up in the social like meeting thing. And then in the other one, they had an in-person office, but it was around COVID time. And even in the in-person office, they had like basketball hoops, and I don't play basketball, and they had a beer area and I don't drink beer, and the whole thing was very like I'm a bro doing bro
Hmm.
things in cybersecurity. And like, I love cybersecurity and I really liked the actual work I was doing, but the culture was so toxic and unfriendly to be a young woman in that I was relieved to be out of the office and have less of a bonding mandate during the time that I was there. So, that's my experience with, with in-person workplace culture. I don't know about you guys. Maybe you had better ones.
For in person, I think the last place, specifically the last place that I work on, I do have unique experience because I was part of the team building activities in person in that office. And a lot of them were around the food, really, like potlucks, like someone cooking something and then sharing it with other people. We had like depending on holidays, stuff for like different holidays throughout the year. Like even the summer, they planned a summer barbecue. I feel like the one thing that I saw, it was a workplace that some people could be hybrid. So the people from the call center would be able to only 2 days of the week to the office, and then the rest of the days they would just do their call center work at like their house and everything. And I did see the difference on like the human touch with the peers, with the people that were full time in office, with the people that were hybrid. The people that were hybrid didn't make an attempt to connect to the people that were in office, and the people that were in office didn't make an attempt to connect to the people that were hybrid. They were just like, and I have a very close friend that is working still over there and is working hybrid. And she has mentioned before, I don't have any real like goal of getting to know the people that I work with. I'm just here, just working a job, and that's it. And I just clock in and clock out, and that's not one of my goals. I don't want to be friends with the people that I'm working with, which I think is a unique experience. Like it's a unique goal to have if you are working remotely, because if you're working only like presentially, like it's very hard to just actively say, I want to avoid the people that I am literally looking at every single day. And that can be a blessing and that can be a curse, I think, and go like both ways. Maybe there is someone that wants to get to know people presentially, but doesn't know how to initiate a conversation. But online is a little bit better because they can initiate like a chat versus like the other way around. But I do feel like there was some of that like human touch uh lost. And I do believe that is because there were no attempts from management to bring in the people that were hybrid to connect with the people that were not. And all the events and all the things that were done in person were only with the people that were in person full time in mind. So I do feel that, again, the case of my friend is a very specific case, but I think it's important to mention it. I'm pretty sure there were other people that would work from home that would have loved to know there's a potluck today. Maybe I'll just pop in for lunch and just share with the people and even work the rest of the afternoon from the office. It was allowed, yeah, but it wasn't encouraged, or there weren't any things that would kind of like meet people halfway. I think it's a very similar experience to what Sabrina had, that like people have different priorities and they have different likings and they have different goals. And even though this office did a good thing on trying to make it fun, engaging for different types of people, it was only for a specific group, unfortunately. It was still fun. The types of things they even did like games. I remember there was one that I was very proud. That for Easter they hid golden eggs across around the entire building, and inside the golden egg was a PTO coupon for 5 hours of paid time off. People went feral. Like they were like, oh, where's my egg? Because it's like you're also getting something, and they were running around the break, and it was really, really fun. But again, what about the people that were working from home? Are you making an attempt to have them engage the same way that the people that are over
Hmm.
there? And that's what I think is so cool about us and about here, because I've worked remotely since COVID in like a lot in different places, and I have also taken classes since COVID. And I think this is the first time that I see like more of an active attempt to bridge the virtual gaps in a intentional way. It's like, yeah, we are on our screens all the time, but let's make it a pro instead of a con. We have D&D. Like we interact a lot because we are playing characters that are going on quests and we're all against the same enemy, which is Tim. But that is a very fun, unique way to engage that would have been a pain to schedule if it was in person, because it would require people to travel. It would require people to be in specific places that maybe they don't have the time for that because they have family, they have kids, they have other stuff to do. So I think a lot of the things that we have been done with making sure that everyone is able to participate at the
Hmm.
same kind of like level. And I think it's kind
Yeah.
of cool. Even if we can't have potlucks, which I would absolutely love because I love cooking for people and I love eating. So it's like great. Maybe it's something we could have in the future whenever we have like a presential thing, like we
Yeah.
all of us meet up, but I think it's
Yeah.
still be pretty good.
I think it would be interesting to go that direction because the previous company I worked at, we were in the office and we were one of those small companies, close knits, like people were friends, they hung out with each other. And then when COVID hit, we went remote, like we realized how much of just like learning from each other we lost. Like we just be sitting
That's
there
true.
and like because we were all account managers, like we hear each other talk, we pick up on things and we'd say, "Oh, you did this. Why didn't you do it this way?" And it's just, there's just so much like inadvertent learning that happens when you sit next to each other that gets lost this because unless we directly put it in Slack or it happens on a meeting, we don't know. Um, so I think a lot of that definitely gets lost. And I mean, there are ways to make up for the loss of like interactions, like you were talking about the games and stuff. But yeah, like that kind of stuff was it was so hard to replicate, and we learned it the hard way when we started hiring new people, and we're like, oh God, like we didn't realize how much they learned from just sitting next to someone. But not to say that remote work is a bad thing, because I think it's worked out really well for all of us. So like, CJ, what's your favorite thing about working remote?
I am I'm happy that I get to just program whatever I feel like. That's my favorite thing. Um, I don't know. I really like getting to work on my own stuff. Um, I
Well, you
really
can work
like
on it.
office hours.
Yeah, I mean, you can work on it whenever, wherever.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's my favorite part. Um I get very like passionate about the things that I want to work on, and so when I get to do that, I feel like I work better.
Yeah,
um it's like yeah.
yeah. And then, honestly, I don't know if you could necessarily have that if you had a boss that was kind of walking around, always looking over your shoulder. Like you could be focusing on what you want to do as opposed to, what the boss says you need to do. Because,
Oh, I hate that.
you might had a
Ugh.
brainstorm. Like we all know how that
Right.
goes. I see Sabrina
Yeah.
shaking her head.
I
I
hate that.
what the first place, the really small company, my desk was set up next to a door where anyone who walked in or out of the room, and it was like a small room with everyone in the team, could see my workspace. And then you could even see it if the door was closed and you were walking through the hallway because there was a window.
Hmm.
So everything I was doing was constantly on display, and my boss was micromanaging and like pacing back and forth behind my workspace for I think I was working like 8-hour days. So it was like back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. I could not focus.
Hmm.
I
Coding
hate
while someone
that.
is pacing
Yeah.
behind you is not
No.
fun.
No.
Oh my God, that
I have
sounds awful.
way too much anxiety for that to happen. And I have ADHD, so I am very much fiddling with everything at the same time. So sometimes I'm like, oh, I'll take like an hour to do this one little thing, and then I'm like, I'm gonna go take a break, and then I come back and I get another hour done, and I get things done. But if it was a traditional like 9 to 5 in the office, I think I would get less done.
Yeah. Honestly, we all noticed this. So in that last job, like we could occasionally work from home, like if we had doctor's appointments or someone was sick or whatever. We realized how much more productive we were at home because we couldn't sit around and chat with people. And like it's changed a little bit because of Slack and all that jazz, but it's just the freedom to do what you want, when you want it, how you want it. Like, in between meetings, I'll go upstairs and change the laundry, I'll go clean the kitchen, like my day ends when my kid's bus goes by. Like otherwise I have to figure out how to get home in time for that or have someone pick him up and it all it's just the quality of life is so much better. And the amount of time I spend in a car is so much less and it's fantastic.
I think there's two things that are very important that you touch upon. Number one is the commuting. We didn't have a car at the time, so my commute was 2 hours to go and 2 hours to come. So I
Oh,
spent 4 hours on, I think, 6 to 8 different buses, depending on the weather and depending on everything else. So that was a 100% complete game changer. Because also the place that I live in, the bus lines are like very finicky. To go to that office is 15 minutes by car, but approximately 2 hours to 2 hours and a half on the bus
that
because you
makes
have to
no
go all the
sense.
way down to town and then like take another bus that takes you to the other town and go all the way up because the buses don't go on the highway. But another
Hmm.
thing that you were touching upon in is how much of a difference it made personally, but I'm pretty sure you're gonna resonate, everyone's gonna resonate with this, but like as a neurodivergent person, to be able to say, I am going to work in the way that works best for my brain, because now I can do the whole micromanagement thing and everything. I can say, I am going to work on doing research. And then when I get tired of doing research, I can do work on illustration because that gives my brain the rest that it needs, even if I'm still working. And then I'm just gonna go. I want to eat at whatever time I want to eat because I'm a snacker and I'm a whatever eater, whatever. I just go to the fridge, bring it back, eat, take 5 minute break. If I feel tired, I can take a mid of the day shower. There's so many I can eat, I can go take a walk. Sometimes in the middle of the workday, I feel like my thoughts are very like jam, like scrambled all over the place, and I can just go take a 5 minute walk and I feel so much better. All of those things have
Well,
definitely,
Sabrina, you just took an accidental nap. That wouldn't happen
I
in an
did.
office.
yeah.
Yeah, there's
Yeah,
no
let's
way that
go
would
for
have happened if we
accidental
had
naps.
a real office. And I was also thinking about how you were describing like working the way you want in the places you want and all this stuff. I've definitely like had Slack conversations and like troubleshooting and problem solving for like a couple hours while I'm just lying in bed.
I was gonna
I
say, I
wake
take my
up and I
laptop to
grab my
bed a lot
phone and I'm
too.
like, okay, solving problems, but I don't have to be presentable. I don't have to like be put together. I can still solve the problems just as easily from my phone as I could sitting at my laptop and like looking all nice and stuff. But it allows me to like do what I feel like I can do at the moment.
Hmm.
And it's
It's
still work.
it's definitely great. I just to do a little bit because I feel it's important to keep touching up on the mental health. I was checking my watch because I have a new smartwatch that I've been fiddling with, and it has been recording my sleep. And the last time I recorded my sleep was when I was working at this other job that like I had to commute and I had to be go up there and everything. And I realized how much my sleep itself has improved just because I don't have the sheer amounts of stress. Because Sabrina and I have been talking about sleep a lot, and I was saying that I sleep, but I don't rest. And I realized that I have been resting. Like the watch has actually been tell with I have been resting properly because I don't have to take that extra level of stress that it comes from commuting and being in an office setting. Because also there were a lot of things that weren't work related that I had to take into account when I was going to the office. One of them was being presentable at all times, which is what Sabrina was saying, because we were working for the state and we have people from the state in the office. So it's like you can't look disheveled. And I was doing IT support. So it's like if someone from the state calls me to go fix their computer, I can't be in pajamas just looking like a complete crazy person because it gives the company I was working for a bad name. So it's that. It's making sure that I am like being aware of my surroundings because of the whole micromanagement thing, but also because, again, I was doing IT, I was dealing with confidential information, making sure that I establish boundaries. I think it's something that is not talked a lot in like in person, like offices a lot. Boundaries don't exist for a lot of people in the workplace, and establishing them when you're in an in-person setting is like way harder. There were people, for example, that would come barging into the IT office. I need this done. And it's like, whoa, who are you? And create a ticket, please. But all of those things, they do add that extra level of stress because it's like invading your space. And I'm very particular with boundaries. I'm very particular with space because I respect people's boundaries so well. So all of those things, which are not work-related tasks, are still added stressors whenever you go to an office. And if I haven't had to, but if I had to set a boundary right here online, I could just shoot a message and be like, "Hey, can you please message me about this in work hours?" And that's it.
Hmm.
Or just I just respond
You
to
who told
it.
me that you get every notification ever through your watch.
Yeah, but like it's an example. Like I am not going to do that, but like
Uh-huh.
it's an example. Or like
It
someone
sounds like Tim
sends
doesn't believe you.
I have all I have all I
It's
have
an
all
example, not
notifications.
a realistic example.
Okay, well, I can give an example of something that happened.
That's
Someone
okay.
someone pinging specifically me, "Hey, please respond to this now on a Saturday when I was out with family doing stuff. And I got upset and I just established my boundary while by just responding on Monday.
Hmm.
And that is not something that could have happened in an office. It's like even if it's a Saturday and you just go for like a drop in, because sometimes we had to do that. Uh, maybe people would be
Yeah.
just like
But
nagging you and stuff.
on the flip side of that, because you are at home, you're always at your computer, you're always at your phone. Like there are people who are that opposite, like, hey, you're there, you should be working. And that was one of the issues I had with my last job is
Oh yeah,
I set that boundary of like, hey, it's 5 o'clock. I have to get my children. Like I'm done
yeah.
here. And that did not sit well with some of the people in leadership because they were workaholics. Like they're working 12 hours a day. And like, I literally can't do that. My child is like 2, he's 3. Like I can't leave him alone. Like what do you want me to do? Um, so it was a, don't get me wrong. I loved that job and I loved that company, but it was a good departure. Um, but on that note, because I forgot to watch the clock again, let's move into today's creativity conundrum. So what do you do if you've, kind of made a hole in your story, a plot hole? Like maybe you said it's episode 3 when it's actually episode 4 in the start of the podcast and you're too lazy to go back and edit it. But what do you do when you find that hole that that's really ruined everything? How do you fix that?
I have an answer for this. Wait, I am a control freak when it comes to my story, so this is very like a very specifically unique thing to me, but I have a plot hole document. I for the stuff that I'm writing, every single thing that I find that is a plot hole, I write it down in a specific spreadsheet. And next to the spreadsheet is like my plans on how to fix the plot hole depending what it is. And usually especially if I'm writing or like editing and it's like towards the first half of the story, I make sure to just like fix it on the stuff that I'm going to do because I feel like it's easier to just have it in mind than going back. If it's something that I have to go back, I tend to just take a note go right away, but just kind of like put a pin on it because I feel like if you re-edit constantly every single time that you find something on the back, like, and just keep going back, keep going back, keep going back, you're never going to advance in your story because that's something that happened a lot to me. I do, I say in life in general, I am like a master of like bullshitting. So in general in life, like talking, I was very, very good making doing presentations in school, for example, because like give me any topic and I can talk for like 2 hours about that topic and convince you that I know what I'm talking about, even if I crammed it the day before. So I try to use that ability of my stories as well. So it's like instead of trying to say like, oh, I messed up unless it's something that's very tiny, like I say she's wearing pants, and I say she's wearing a skirt, and then I had said she's wearing pants, and I literally just remember that, and I just put the word pants on it because that happened literally yesterday when I was editing my book. Um, if it's something that doesn't have clarification at the moment, and it could be just a little bit confusing, I make sure to take extra time in like clarifying why it makes sense at the moment.
Hmm.
For example, there is a particular element in a story that I realize in my editing process that is never mentioned, but the element is important for that specific scene. I am going to then find a reason why the element is important and add it as a like Chekhov's gun it within like the second half of the story or like the middle, mention it a couple more times. So from a plot hole, I am creating a storytelling device in this object that was very specifically a white lighter that I wanted to do because it's just an urban legend and it had no reason whatsoever to be on it. And now it has a reason to be on it, and I'm pretty happy about it. I'm sorry,
Hmm.
I've been working on my book for so long that it's the only examples that I have. But instead of backtracking, I feel like if you build the mistake into the story can become so much richer and so much layered. And you just can convert it into a mini plot instead of a plot hole. Maybe it's something that you decide that it was intentionally wrong. And it turns out that the character, when they say it, was lying on purpose because they were hiding a secret. Boom. Subplot.
When you say
Wow.
plot hole, are you talking specifically about books, or is it like books and like saying something that was incorrect
I
Anything.
in
was
real
talking
life?
specifically about books.
She
No,
was talking
like
about
Tim,
books.
Tim's
My
question.
question is just regards to anything creative.
Oh wow.
So books, just talking. CJ, this one might fall a little more in your realm, like even D&D campaigns where you got to make it up on the fly. Um,
Yeah. Oh gosh. Oh, don't
I have
know.
seen those in real life.
I am very bad at uh not I wouldn't say I'm very bad at improving, but I don't think I'm that good, and I've definitely eh,
You're a
made
good
so
DM.
thank you. Thank
You're a good DM.
you. Um
I
I
like the way that you DM.
I DM for my little Dungeons and Dragons campaign, and I've definitely said a bunch of things that don't make any like that have no bearing on what's going on, and I have like a thought. I'm like, oh, I want to include this kind of plot there, and then when I get to it and I like actually say it because I can't go back and edit what I said because it already, I'm the open book. Um, then it's kind of like I have to weave that into the story. Like it's required because otherwise I don't like plot holes really. I like things to make sense in a way. Um, so if it doesn't make sense, then it's gonna bother me,
mhm.
and so I have to re-include it. And I feel like also in regards to like Sabrina's question with like, oh, is this about stories or creative stuff or just speaking or whatever? I definitely say things in the wrong way a lot of the time. Um, so like for example, I have no idea what I said maybe 30 minutes ago, and I can't go back and edit that, and I probably said a couple things that were completely wrong, and um, so I don't
Don't
know.
worry, it's not recorded or anything.
It's not recorded or anything. So I don't know. I plot holes are like pretty big for me. Um, yeah, because I kind of just sometimes I just say things and I forget what I say and what I'm doing, and that kind of affects D&D and my life. Weird. I don't know what I'm saying anymore. It makes
I
sense.
I think it
Makes
made
sense.
sense. I think it
Thank
made
you.
sense.
I think
Yeah.
that's my cold open right there.
It's a good
But
one.
no, I absolutely get that. Like, I actually realized that our like kind of almost the start of our campaign that we're doing is almost the plot hole, and I had to figure out how to rectify that, and I did, and I'm not going to tell you because you would find out,
No,
but
not.
you'll
Oh,
find out
I
eventually.
would
It's
love to
good.
know.
Ah,
Beatrice knows
we
because she has to
almost
do the
got
art
it.
for it,
Yeah.
but
But yeah, you're kind of forced to weave those plot holes
mhm.
into a story. So it's very interesting.
Sabrina, what about you?
Well, in terms of art and creative projects, a lot of the art that I do is like pen drawings and scribbles and stuff. And I feel like that ties in with the conversation because with a pen, you can't like erase it. That's kind of the point. And when I make a mistake with a pen, it can't be a mistake. It has to become something that is part of the art, which is part of the reason that when I am drawing with one, if it's something that's realistic, then I go for like a more messy style so that it becomes part of like the texture of the art. It's like the genre of what I'm creating. And then when I'm not going for something realistic, it can just be little abstract shapes where who is to say whether or not that little line is supposed to be there? It's not you, like it's not me. I'm just doing what my hand is doing, you know? But no one's going to look at like a little, strange mark through an abstract shape and go like, "Ah, that shouldn't be there." Even if what happened was I was drawing and the dog barked and I like jumped and it went flying across the page.
So when you
So
say it, there are no mistakes, only happy little accident.
only happy little accidents, of
Okay, Bob
course.
Ross.
Uh,
Of
Love Bob Ross.
course. But then like in non-art related examples and like real life, well, I guess art is real life, but like in terms of plot holes in what I say throughout the day, I get really nervous, like CJ, about
Oh,
saying something that's like incorrect or that someone can check me on and be like, actually, that was wrong. And so when it comes to citing sources, this is my background as a history major. I am so intense about like, this is where I found it, this is who said it, this is where you can find it yourself if you feel like fact checking me, which is great for a history report. And it's not quite as useful in a lot of other parts of life where you need to do things quickly. Um, but when I do get something wrong, because there's no way to avoid it entirely, I found that the easiest thing to do is to just listen and learn and then revise. Like, I have met a lot of people who, when they're questioned or like when someone's like, actually, I don't think that's right, they double down. They're like,
Hmm.
you're wrong, I'm right, shut up, how dare you? And that's not helpful. And it doesn't like move anything in like a positive direction. That just means, oh, okay, now I will never like come I know that you're not a safe space anymore to tell you
Yeah.
something. Um, so yeah, I think the best thing to do is just like listen and revise, but like listen before revising because you can also you're allowed to disagree with someone who's correcting you and be like, I heard what you said and I still think I'm correct. As long as you listened, you know, as long as you have a like a conversation, like a dialogue. I think that plot holes are totally fine. And that's actually why you have beta readers too, so that they can be like, hey, I think this is wrong. I've heard a lot of people express frustration about having like foreshadowing or like lying or secrets, like Beatrice was saying earlier, like that they're putting in their work and a beta reader doesn't have all that context and is like, actually, your character said earlier that they hate eels, but here they're I don't know, petting an eel. I guess that's a random example.
Eels. That was a weird one to jump to.
That's like so specific. Sabrina, I'm gonna ask you a question. Do you
Okay,
like eels?
I like eels, except as meals. That's an Ogden Nash poem.
That is another very,
Yeah.
very, very specific answer.
It is.
I love that answer.
All
On
right.
I
Well,
let's
actually do
make an
like eating
eel.
eels as meals. I'm sorry, that was a lie. I do like eating
It
eels.
was a plot hole. We
Plot
should
hole.
make an eel for as a story for Avatar.
That'd be cute.
The eel that likes meals.
That's
Not
fine.
be
and
It
eating
was
as
like
on
a
meals,
really
just
fat
likes to
eel or
eat.
something.
as we continue to get further and further off course, I think we're going to go ahead and end that today. So that's our show for today. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you at the Forge.
Let's go eat meals with
Bye.
eels.